Howdy, howdy!
What up?
And welcome to But It Was Aliens! The paranormal comedy podcast where we probe paranormal activity to decide for the questionable benefit of humanity as to whether that activity really was paranormal.
Kev owes me a Porsche!
My name is Kev in the John, and alongside me with no idea what we will be uncovering today is Mr. Granville Moonwalker the Porceless.
Granny Moonwalker!
The king of the street grannies and the peachiest of asses. Today we head to Rockville.
That doesn't null and void the other ones because you didn't sign it. You owe me 2 Porsches and a Ferrari.
I signed it with my nickname.
Bitch.
Rockville is a small town in Maryland, Virginia, which is approximately a 45-minute drive from Washington, D.C. Rockville is said to have been once known as Owen's Ordinary, allegedly a dirty rest house in the 1700s, before then being named after a tavern, then another tavern, then finally the guy who brought that tavern. This town has a population a sparrow's bum puff over 67,000 people. Rockville is also home to Bethesda HQ, creators of the Fallout and the Elder Scrolls video game series. However, that's modern day. We are heading back to May the 11th, 1969, baby.
So, did this place start as like a tavern and then grow into a town?
Basically.
And then Bethesda were like,
Yeah.
we're going to fall out for it
The way
and just take over.
the way I envision it is like Dusk Till Dawn, kind of a bar,
Oh.
dirty shit going down, stopgap between other places that are more established, and it's
then it
gradually
grew
turned
around.
into a rockin' place. Twiddly-dee.
Great film, by the way.
Yeah, the first.
The more you mention like Bethesda and DC, because when you say DC, I think DC Comics. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for Comic-Con tomorrow.
Are you? I assumed you were taking your niece there,
I am.
but it's for you, really.
I fucking love Comic-Con.
I've never been. What sort of things do you do there?
To be fair, it's just all like, I'm a fucking nerd, so I love looking at like the comic books and going around all that shit. And
Do you buy comic books? Never asked you.
every now and again,
What ones?
mainly like the one-off ones. So not one where it's a whole series and I need to keep buying more. I'll just get like the one-off story one. So I've got Deadpool kills the MCU, that kind of stuff. But my niece is a little nerd. I love it.
To be fair, if I went somewhere like that, I'd probably just buy all the weird little ornaments.
I tend to buy
Assume there's
hoodies.
merch. Yeah, you'd buy clothing. I like shit that I don't need. Like if you turn around, on the shelf behind you, there are See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil deaths. A Little Witch, Oberon.
Have you seen the spare room in my house?
I have seen a spare room in your house, and you can barely step in that room because there's so much, mainly Funko Pop dolls, if I recall correctly.
Shit don't need. I think some weekends coming up, my other half is going to her parents because they're clearing out the loft. And
It's all her shit she don't need.
I think there's a lot of Funko Pop shit you don't need up there.
Who's the bigger Funko Popper, her or you? It's her.
By fucking miles.
Are you a Funko Popper at all?
Only like the odd random things that I'm into.
I've never bought one yet.
So I think I probably have about 10 to 15. Mm-hmm. She probably has 70 to 80 or more.
Intriguing.
However, she's got loads of like school and uni shit up there.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, I'm going to get rid of my
Degree.
school stuff.
More space for Funko Pop.
But I'll keep my uni stuff. And my answer was, have you seen it in the last 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Good way of looking at it.
It's like, no, then burn it.
Mike Luczkowich was a horny 20-year-old student at Mannequin. He was tongue lashing his fingers every lady he saw, every gentleman he saw,
Horny with a
every
mannequin?
adult he saw. At Mannequin, that's the place.
Oh.
Not horny with a mannequin. Mike had been out on a date. Well, I say date.
A date with a mannequin.
Mike was out with his girlfriend, so you tell me, does that count as a date? We don't have confirmation as to what happened on this date or not date, but what we do know is that students are horny. We also know that Mike wasn't drinking because Mike was driving. We have a reliable witness right off the bat. As Mike headed on home at 01:45 in the morning, that's AM Granville, past the Rockville General Store, Mike saw something glisten about 50 yards ahead of him. In fact, there are a few glistens. Sparkly!
Now, when was this?
This was 1:45 in the morning.
What year?
It was a year of 1969, baby.
Okay, so we have no proof that he wasn't drinking and driving, considering it wasn't illegal to drink and drive.
You have my word.
Until around the 80s.
What sort of person would be drinking and driving at 1:45 in the morning in 1969, baby? A horny one.
A very horny one. And especially when it wasn't illegal to do so. A lot of horny people.
Pretty sure it was illegal by then.
Nope.
Didn't we research this and it was like been illegal since like the 1800s or something?
Nope.
You're saying that with such conviction. I feel
I
like
am.
you don't know it off the top of your head though.
The fact that it wasn't illegal in the UK until the 80s, I'm pretty sure the Americas was worse.
I'm going to have to Google that.
Google it, motherfucker. It's like 70s.
It was going to be like the 1800s. UK in 1967. Crikey.
Because I remember seeing loads of videos where people were really annoyed that they had to not, or it was illegal to drink and drive and they couldn't have a drink and then go driving.
So in America, it's different depending on the states, but it's roughly 1910 to 1911.
Okay. So
the
what was it in this particular state?
Either 1910 or 1911. Do you need more specific than that?
Yeah.
It was May the 12th, 1969, baby! The day after.
That's mad. It was illegal to drive and drunk in America more.
Well, thinking about it, like Ford are America, aren't they? Maybe that's when the Industrial Revolution really kicked in on that side of the pond and people thought, hold on, you can't be driving 10 miles per hour with drunk.
Maybe.
With drunk?
Maybe. It's because they're shit drivers. Yeah, I said it. I'll race you.
Right.
Sober.
Glistens. Mike assumed the glistening was a couple of deer and put his foot down, allegedly truthfully. As Mike got closer, however, Mike realised that these were no deer.
It was the mannequin family coming for their daughter.
You will pay for what you've done, Michael. Don't lick your... What are you doing, Michael? Stop! He takes them all. They've driven there, they can't actually move. They're powerless to resist. And how do they drive? They have ways.
Oh, derailed this whole
AI.
episode already.
I blame the last episode.
Should have signed it.
So Mike realised there were no deer. For a start, whatever Mike was looking at was a couple of somethings standing at about 3.5 feet tall, plus change. Granted, that's only just over the height of your average deer, but these somethings were also standing on 2 legs. They didn't even have another 2 legs. It wasn't deer. The figures were wearing brown overalls, which were tight at the ankles yet loose on the upper leg. Stop! Hammer time! The figures were wearing spherical helmets the size of basketballs, with a pale green band wrapped around the helmets, which effectively appeared to be a high-vis accessory.
He's like fucking Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, kind of. The band reflected headlights. Safety first, regardless of your planet. Speaking of headlights, Mike's headlights were firmly on these figures and they acted just as a rabbit in headlights. The figures had completely frozen.
Oh my God, that's right. Why you look at your tongue, Michael?
Michael is like the world's horniest man. Anything he sees above age,
Is fucking.
he tried to, and he thinks doing the two fingers lick your tongue through the middle is how you crack on to everyone. It works every time. Never actually works, but he's like,
Trying to think of a time that worked.
the time is never, my friend. It's horrific.
I remember a friend of ours used to do that a lot when we were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's had one of those friends.
Never worked.
No.
So we've got essentially Oompa Loompas.
We essentially have Oompa Loompas.
Did they have... I mean, you've probably told me, but I wasn't really paying attention.
I'm just here for the warmth.
Did they have, like, antlers? Or did he just think they were deer because of the glistening?
He assumed they were deer because when you see deer from like a while away, you see the glisten of the eyes usually first, and as you get closer, you start to see the outline. So he saw the glisten and assumed they were deers, got closer and was like, where are the horns?
Oh, okay.
Then realised they were little
So
people.
they weren't
No,
Oompa
no
Loompas with antlers.
No, they were
Okay.
not. They were mini MC Hammers. Sliding along the road, doing the runner man.
So were they shocked because something was coming towards them?
Something
and then,
bright.
Like, fight or flight kicked in.
I'd imagine
except
so.
They didn't do either. They froze.
Fight, flight, or freeze. That is the response, isn't it? And it appears to be the way they've gone.
Okay.
Suddenly, the figures snapped into life just like a rodent in the sights of a predator, fighting for their life, and the figures absolutely hossed it up the embankment to the left of the road in front of Mike.
Flight kicked in.
No sooner did these figures disappear than a third figure scurried out from the right of the road and followed the other two figures up the embankment to the left. The third figure moved at absolutely ridiculous speed. The whole time, Mike had seen them. Mike couldn't make out any arms, even as the figures ran.
Oompa Loompas with no arms.
Mike was understandably...
Like chubby little legs, overalls and a head.
Yep. Powerless to resist Mike. Mike was understandably shocked at this experience, but Mike was still a reasonable man.
A reasonable, horny man.
Mike knew that what he just witnessed made absolutely no sense, and so Mike knew that nobody would believe this. Therefore, Mike didn't tell a soul about the experience for half a day. Come Sunday evening, Mike told some friends, and on Monday, Mike and 3 others, including Ray Ricketts, set off to retrace Mike's steps.
Okay. So I'm assuming they drove back to where he stopped and saw them scurry apart.
Yes.
Scurry past?
Yes.
Scurry across.
That's
and then
exactly what we're going to cover
they
next.
followed
yeah.
the tracks that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Smart.
Now, did he take
Smart.
people that were bigger and stronger than he was?
Possibly.
Because he sounds like a pussy.
What do you mean? I've given you nothing to suggest this guy was a pussy. Absolutely nothing.
If you see this and then you get friends to go back and check it, you're a pussy. If you go back on your own during daytime, then you're sensible. However, if you need others to come with you,
But it's about
I
verifying
suppose,
it,
yeah,
isn't
you
it?
need verification.
It's not
don't
about
you?
backup. It's
Yeah,
about convincing them what you saw, because you know this shit don't make sense.
at at that point, then, wouldn't you get the authorities?
Well, he wants to make sure that he didn't
Because-
just imagine it or something, perhaps.
Yeah.
Being like smashed and driving.
Yeah. Oh, so he's drunk now.
No, he's not. I'm just saying that if he was, I mean, he could have been off his face on substances other than alcohol.
Because if you just take your friends and it's you and your friends going, and you still have, yes, you have other people saying it, but you could all be in on the same lie. If you went and got a police officer and they saw it, then
But maybe
Scouts Honour and
they're
all
going to
that.
go check to see if there's any evidence and then get the police in if there is, but they don't want to be seen as like a laughing stock if there isn't.
Ah, that's a good point. What year was this?
1969, baby!
Did they have cameras? Did they take a camera with them?
Cameras were around then, but it wasn't like everyone had one all the time. I mean, when I was a little
But
kid
did
in
they have
early
one?
2000, there was a camera in my house, but it never had film in, and it was like 30 years old and didn't work.
I remember that. I had one of them as well.
Yeah.
In my house.
One long, narrow
Yep.
thing, yeah.
Turn it that way. Look like a pair of, what's his name's fucking data.
Yeah, exactly that. Useless if you see a UFO, but it's there. At the site of the sighting, much to the other three gentlemen's
Just aged us.
surprise.
Well, I was about to say, then we got camera phones. Whee!
At the site of the sighting, much to the other three gentlemen's surprise, the group found a very clear trail through the poison ivy and honeysuckle up the embankment. Beyond the embankment,
Honey.
there was a barley field, and again, much to the surprise of the gentleman, there was a clear trail through the barley as if something, or a group of somethings, had hossed it through the field. A few feet into the field, the group found two flattened areas about 3.5 feet tall, give or take, almost as if a couple of entities had thrown themselves down to the ground. Had the creatures shat their pants so hard at the sight of Mike and Mike's car that they hossed it into the field and dived for cover? Upon closer inspection of the flat areas, you could clearly make out the outline of one body in one of the areas, and in the other area was a clear outline of two bodies. Before you take the piss, the creatures got away, so this diving tactic did work.
To be fair, it might have been a case of they don't know what this machine is.
Exactly.
So him pulling up and there being bright lights absolutely spooked them. They leg it into the field, and then when he starts his car up or revs it, that's what forces them to dive.
Mm-hmm.
The sound of the engine scares them into diving.
I think that's more than reasonable, yeah.
Absolutely. The rest of it, maybe not so.
What I find interesting, if we were going out into the bushes, would we recognise trails?
We would not go out into the bushes.
We've been out into the bushes.
We are not going back out into the bushes.
Do you want to come out into the bushes?
No.
I obviously go into fields and whatnot quite a lot with the dog. Never once have I looked at the ground and been like, there's tracks of her.
Yeah, like a rabbit's been through here or something.
I don't go, if you see a squirrel or something or a rabbit in the distance, you're like, oh, there's a so-and-so or a deer even. But never do I see tracks on the ground. I'm like,
Never.
this is a bear.
When you hear stories of hunters and everything, and they go through and they track bears or deer or something like that, and they can see where the bear's been. Beer? Where the beer's been.
Where is the beer? The beer? Who's got the beer?
Where the deer has been through like their tracks, and then like little bits of fur and everything like that. I wouldn't be able to notice that for shit.
No.
I'd just look at the ground and be like, huh, there's stuff here.
I have fed a wild deer before, and I didn't know the deer was there until it was whacking its nose against the building.
Damn. Did you kill it and eat it?
No. We just gave it some nuts and then it trotted on its way. Took these nuts! That is basically it for Mike's experiences, but before you think there isn't much to this one, that wasn't it for the evidence. For you see, approximately half a mile west of Rockville,
There was Stoneville!
about 2 hours before Mike's sighting, 18-year-old Debbie Payne had seen a luminous oval-shaped object in the sky above Debbie's house as Debbie was being driven home from a date. This was 1969, so news of that sighting hadn't broke until after Mike's experiences were picked up by a local paper. Who Debbie was on a date with, we do not know. The sky oval had appeared bright, faded, but then became bright, faded and brightened again in the sky. There was no landing as far as Debbie saw. The light disappeared from view, but this was clearly controlled flight a couple of hours before an alien sighting. Connecting the dots, it all makes sense.
So, they went to look for evidence before going to the police or
Yes.
an authority,
Yes?
but they somehow went to a newspaper and their story got out. Did they go to an authority? Was it verified? Or did they just go straight to a publication? Because from the sounds of things, they went straight to a publication.
So, they went to an authority, I think it would be fair to say.
Was it the paper?
Well, yes and no. They did go, the papers were aware, yes, but they went to a different authority.
What was the authority?
We're going to cover that in the next section.
Was it his dad?
No, it was an authority, not the authority.
Was it a school?
No, it was not.
So, Debbie's on a date
Mm-hmm.
and she gets dropped off at home.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount to take away other than a UFO had been seen.
Oh, a UFO hadn't been seen, a light had been seen.
An unidentified flying light,
Just an unidentified light.
but it was in the sky. It was flying,
Doesn't mean it's flying.
but it wasn't on the ground.
Could be hovering.
What are you? Okay, an
Hovering isn't flight.
unidentified hovering flying.
UHFO.
Accept it, damn it.
UHFO. UFO.
News travels fast.
Does
Move
it?
on. Were on the scene to investigate these experiences 2 weeks later, on May the 24th, still 1969. Baby. Honourable John Carlson, Carl Flock, and Ted Blocher of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, NICAP, were assisted in their investigations by local UFO man Ray Ricketts, who had done the preliminary checks. You may recall Ray
Ricketts
was one of the 3 gentlemen whom accompanied Mike in retracing Mike's steps. Preliminary steps. A couple of weeks after initial interviews with Mike, other NICAP staff returned to the field to study the tracks, but by this point the barley had been mowed and the evidence was therefore lost. NICAP therefore were not able to take photographs. We are left only with the spoken word. Interviews. In those initial interviews, NICAP asked Mike to sketch what Mike saw, and Mike came up with an image of, well, it's kind of an empty figure without arms. I'll let Mr. Moonwalker check this sketch out quickly.
Before I do,
Yes?
we only have the spoken word interviews. Do we have those?
Oh no, they were written down.
Oh, so they weren't audio.
No,
Not spoken word in the sense, but written word.
they were spoken and transferred to the written word
So written word.
from spoken word. The word was spoken and then written just as it was spoken.
Ooh.
Yeah, as far as Mike could tell, there were no faces to the figures, just legs and a blank face.
So, what we have here
Yes.
literally looks like what you would expect if you saw a human with no arms and a massive head with no face.
Big head, yeah.
Just a circle in the middle.
Like, how is that head not weighing down the body?
Doesn't necessarily mean it's heavy.
Strong neck.
If it's a flashlight with balls.
I was waiting for the reference to that side probe. Flashlight with balls.
So what he would have seen when he was driving is like walking reflectors.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
Like
Green reflective band.
yeah, they turn. It's just like a circular
High
screen
vis.
almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Creepy.
NICAP wanted to speak with Debbie's date, but the date stated that they did not see the oval in the sky. To be fair to Debbie, the date would have had their eyes on the road as they were driving,
Absolutely.
but the date didn't even want to be named in the investigation. This means that we can't follow up. Mike and Debbie's sighting was picked up in the August 1975 issue 93 of the Skylook UFO magazine, the official publication of MUFON.
Was her date horny?
Probably. It was 69.
Probably not looking at the road.
MUFON concluded that the creatures had intended to be seen, as they had ample warning to hide from the lights and sounds of the approaching car. MUFON classified this encounter as a classical detect and escape, where a light or movement catches the witness's eye, a figure or figures then appear before bolting for the exit, so to speak. What is the purpose of a detect and escape, I wonder?
Well, until you catch these things, you have no idea. Because it says they have ample warning from the lights and the sound of their approaching car.
Yeah.
But we don't know what their detection range is.
Yeah, maybe they've got really crap eyesight and hearing.
Absolutely.
Like,
So it wasn't until the car was within like 2 to 3 feet that they could hear and see it.
or maybe the other way, they've got super, like instead of arms, they've got like hundreds of ears on the side of their body. Therefore, they hear things from absolutely miles away and just don't realise when it's really, really close.
I suppose it would get louder, therefore they would.
But maybe it's super loud to
However-
begin with for them.
Yeah, that's the point.
And then suddenly their crappy eyesight kicks in, they realise it's about to hit them, and then they scarper up the embankment. Maybe the purpose of that is they're seeing what the human response is. They're trying to suss us out as a species. Like, this is a probe brigade coming down, popping up in front of a random human,
to be
seeing
fair,
what's happened, studying us.
This literally could be a group that was sent down to test our means rather than to actually do anything else.
Maybe.
They might not have wanted to be here, but they're enslaved to a higher race, another form, and are just doing what they're told.
Or
They're pawns.
they're from obviously another planet. They've been shown pictures of humans and have come down to investigate, thinking they'd be fine, not having any awareness as to cars. They're thinking humans going to be walking or running at sort of fairly slow speeds comparatively. Then they see a vehicle bolting towards them. They're like, what? Diving for the bushes. We mentioned earlier that we've seen roughly 3 feet tall aliens before in overalls. We have actually covered this a bunch of times. We've had the farmer Gary Wilcox sighting in Newark, 1964, where the aliens had soil and leaves in their hands. We've had ufologist Jenny Randall's tale of Jean Hingley in 1979 England, who saw a light in her garden before the aliens floated Jean towards them.
Before you continue, I have no recollection of any of these.
You covered most of these. But you, in fact,
I remember Gary Wilcox. I have no recollection.
That was the only one that I did. There's been the 1970s skiing sighting in Finland, Betty Andreasen's affair of 1967,
Now I remember that. I meant the ones you'd already mentioned.
Carlos Mercado's big night out in Puerto Rico, 1988, with the sexy greys who took Carlos for a ride. We have previously covered Rosa Dinelli and the Sanina UFO in Italy, 1954. Even Antonio Villas-Boas was abducted and funked in 1957 Brazil by aliens in overalls, albeit slightly taller. I also found reference to another 3 feet tall overall aliens in Zimbabwe 1996, France 1954, and the old USSR of 1936. We even covered Johnny Sands fairly recently. Overall aliens.
Wasn't there a Zimbabwe one, the school? See, I remember everything after the ones you said.
We've seen so many of these ones by this point that we must be starting to wonder whether there's something to them. There's simply no way all these people had heard of each other's experiences. You must be starting to wonder, Mr. Moonwalker. You even did like an episode on like 3 or 5 cases of them once, didn't you? All in one episode. He's like, am I off?
Yeah, probably.
I'll just finish with this.
I'll take your word for it.
There was a near identical event to the probe we have covered today 5 years earlier. Same descriptions, same activities. I won't say further as we'll probably cover it one day, but MUFON believed the witnesses in both events. As we prepare to summarise, will we believe, or can we explain this one away?
I've got one thing to ask.
Yes.
Do MUFON just believe everyone?
Not everyone.
99% of the people that go to them.
Probably 99.9.
Okay.
You ready to summarise?
No.
How about now?
Yes.
In summary, we've covered the case of Mike Luczkowich, who in 1969 saw some glistening ahead whilst on his way home from a date. Mike then saw a couple of aliens scurry across the road, followed by a lightning-quick third. The aliens were about 3.5 feet tall and were wearing overalls, just as we have seen in several previous probes that Mr. Moonwalker fully remembers. Mike told some friends and a group retraced Mike's steps the next evening. The group found some tracks and indentations suggestive of 3 figures hiding in nearby fields. NICAP investigated and found that a lady named Debbie Payne saw a UFO a few hours earlier in the same area. D-Payne! Sadly, the field was mowed before NICAP could gather any physical evidence. But there was a very similar event 5 years before this incident. There have been several sightings of 3 feet tall overall aliens, many of which we've covered on this very podcast, as I've said. Mr. Moonwalker, in fact, has been very passionate in covering these himself and convincing us of their existence. I ask you, Mr. Moonwalker, did Mike get some on the date? Are you ready to conclude? What if Debbie and Mike were actually on the date together?
Then no, he didn't get some, because he dropped her off and left.
Maybe they stopped halfway home.
However. No.
However.
Mike didn't get any.
Oh.
I'm ready to conclude. Go
Are
for
you
it.
saying that it was aliens?
No.
Shock.
I am not in the slightest. It's
They've believed too easily?
I think he was possibly under the influence. Gone on a date, had a little to drink, dropped her off, gone to drive home. Possibly saw something, however, not something alien in nature.
So something
Just
happened.
his brain couldn't comprehend what he was seeing at the time.
Because he was drunk.
Absolutely. Or under the influence of something else, maybe mushrooms.
The
or
opposite gender.
LSD or something like that.
He was really, really horny.
And then got his friends to go back and just double check. But they found nothing.
Yeah, this incident has been very, very seriously investigated, but there isn't much physical evidence to back up the accounts. And by much, admittedly, I mean any. But leaving that to one side, this one came down to whether we believe Mike and Debbie. MUFON believed. I believe.
Seems to
I
be
believe.
that MUFON believe everything.
I believe that this one is a combination of students having a giggle and possibly Debbie too. But as I kind of wondered a moment ago, was Debbie doinking Mike? I'm not making any allegations, but was she? That is the real mystery of this episode. Not aliens, but were Debbie and Mike connected? Also, kind of as you said, MUFON do believe really easily. But yeah, Debbie wouldn't name her date, and I wondered whether Mike came out with this account and then she came out of that to corroborate it and make him look less foolish a day or two later, and that's why the man didn't want to be named.
Yeah.
Complete speculation, as I say, but it's what we do.
Because both of them, it's weirdly going to be less believable.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's two separate accounts, it's more believable. Yeah, no.
Any final thoughts, Mr. Moonwalker?
Thinking of it now, then maybe he got some. If she's willing to go that far for him.
Mike did get some. Debbie got some. They all got some. It was a happy day.
Come get some.
That is a wrap for today. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens. Thank you for coming to get some. If you've enjoyed the show so much that you want to get some more and support us, or frankly, if you hate the show but want to stop us from doing anything more bothersome, you can head on over to the darkest corner of the internet, otherwise known as patreon.com/But It Was Aliens
and come get some.
Become a patron of the show. That will give you access to our side probes, where each month we release these bonus episodes into wider paranormal events, mysteries, and conspiracies the general public aren't ready to hear. You can gain access to those episodes for quite literally less than a cup of coffee. If you have suggestions for future episodes, where did that come from? You can share episode suggestions with us on the X Twitter at But It Was Aliens. Nobody calls it X. You know it, we know it, they know it. You could also say hello on Facebook, where connected to But It Was Aliens is a secretly public private group called Extraterrestrial Towers. Being a member of Extraterrestrial Towers grants you protection from the aliens when they invade. We do not take or give any of your information to extraterrestrials. It's just a vicious rumour. I mean, sure, we take your name, email address, physical address, phone number, tax code, bank account numbers, cup size, butt size. That one seems a little bit weird and I couldn't possibly tell you why we have it, but we do. Your social security, your national insurance number, your DNA nucleotides, and your favourite colour. And sure, we could give that to the aliens if we were secretly supporting them to invade the Earth in exchange for only our safety. And by our, I mean just mine, but we definitely will not. You are safe.
My favourite colour's yellow.
Come get some. That is it.
Get some.
That is it for this episode. So until next time, do spiders have 8 arms or 8 legs? What about octopi? The truth is up there. Hashtag demon butt rope. Come get some.